Hello everyone, greetings and thank you so much for joining my talk today. People who do not know me, I am Sujasree Kurapati. I have been associated with DQ for a long time now. It has been 13 years of journey with DQ, and I started Indian operations for DQ in 2012 and have been managing the team since then. And I'm very proud of our mission, digital equality, and for being part of this highly impactful job that we do at DQ. So with that said, let me get into the agenda of today. So in next 1 hour, what we are going to cover is, I want to share with all of you the journey that we started maybe around 6 to 8 months ago, wherein we found a problem, we identified and acknowledged a problem in the designers space. And we thought of working towards that, and we move forwarded with that path, we found some challenges, and we want to share all that journey and challenges with you and seek your input and insights from you, so that I want to walk away from this session with the insights but through your inputs, and build a better solution for the problem that we identified. So that's the goal of the talk. So please help us with your inputs for all the questions. So expect some questions coming in your way. So you might be wondering, okay, what is the journey, right? So as you might know that DQ always promotes the shift left approach in implementing the accessibility, meaning that we recommend organizations to think about accessibility from the leftmost stage of as much as possible, the leftmost stage of the software life cycle, right? And so as we were thinking about it, we have great X products that helps developers, designers, where you can find the tools to find accessibility issues for the HTML formats and for some of the programming languages, formats and all of that. But if we shift a little more to the left, that means the design phase. So we were wondering, though we have, we are providing services for designers, we were thinking an offering is missing there from the product end. So, and at DQ, we strongly believe to reach the customers where they are. So designers are designing the stuff in the design editors, right? So, but we don't have a robust product solution there. That's what we realized, and we thought of working towards that. But we had a lot of unknowns on what works and what doesn't work for designers. So that is the journey that I'm going to share with you today, and the challenges that we have faced during this, and we are still experimenting it. And so we want to share that and seek your inputs, and so please help us with your inputs, right? So throughout this session, please remember that it's a journey of exploration, right? So when we started this thought process, the first question that we got is, why shift left, right? And why do we want to address accessibility in the design phase itself, right? So think of a situation where you have the commitment from your leadership to build the accessible products. What is the immediate role that comes to your mind who can enable accessibility to a greater extent and impact in a higher, bigger way, right? Obviously, my answer for that would be designer, because for every product concept, a designer is the first person who gives the visual aspect of it, right? Visualization to your concept. So if he or she, addresses the accessibility right there in that phase, they're going to save a lot of effort and time for the development teams, isn't it? So it's not the latest study, but I want to share one study that we did a few years ago at DQ with some of the customers. So in that study, we thought of figuring out if an organization addresses the issues, accessibility issues in the design phase, how much are they going to save? What are they going to discover, right? So the outcome was very fantastic, and we found that 67% of the issues, accessibility issues, can be discovered in the design phase itself. So that's the power of the designer. So we strongly believe designer is the true enabler of accessibility in today's landscape of software development. And as I linked, as I gave the link of the Forrester article here, which is published mid-year last year, and it also talks about 40% of US and Canadian design spending is moving towards accessibility requirements. That means we are realizing the importance of addressing accessibility in the design phase. So this is simple, right? And this is the first reason why we felt like shift left is required, right? And the second reason is very obvious, and definitely the earlier you solve the problems, the more advantages you see, right? So if you solve the problems in the design phase, obviously it is going to save a lot of time and money and effort for for the organizations and the developmental teams, including developers and testers as well. So it is going to be resulting that it makes them more productive and efficient, right? And then the third reasoning was about, it's addressing the issues in the design phase is definitely going to be a very cost-effective solution for the organizations because it reduces the turnaround time a lot. Just take a simple case wherein, even a simple accessibility bug for that matter, if it moves to the production, just think of the time and effort that you need to put in each department of the organization, starting from the production support to designers. The entire cycle has to invest its effort even to fix a small thing. So rather than that, let's spend little more time in the design phase and fix it there itself, right? And of course, it saves the lawsuit cost as well and avoids the legal risk for it, right? And I couldn't attend Gina's talk yesterday, but if you attended the talk, she must have addressed and from her analysis, she must have told 36% of the companies are committed to accessibility, and it is increasing 5% year over year as well. And obviously the entire industry have witnessed that there is an increase in the investment during this pandemic on digital accessibility as well, right? So, and then what we did is we went back to the teams, customers to whom we delivered some services in the design phase, and we asked okay, what did you find by implementing accessibility in the design phase itself, right? And we approached Senthil Nathan Shanmugam from Freshworks. That time he recently changed it to some other company, but that time last year, when we asked him, he said by implementing accessibility in the design phase itself, we were able to achieve efficiency and consistency across the products as long as those teams are following our design systems, right? So that's one advantage, he said. And of course, at the organization level, he also pointed out that definitely implementing accessibility gave them a competitive advantage when they compared their products with their competitors and included every set of customers, including people with disabilities. So with all these simple reasoning, we were very convinced to focus on this space and figure out if we can do something about it, about this problem. So obviously the next question would be, okay, we want to work on it, but what exists today in this space for designer today, in case if any designer wants to implement the accessibility, right? So we went again internally and externally as well to some organizations, seeking what they are doing today, what kind of approaches, what kind of frameworks, or what kind of tools they are using in today's ecosystem. So, and the first and foremost thing that I heard was some organizations are setting up the labs wherein it's called empathy and awareness labs, wherein they are asking the designers to come forward and participate and experience the real exercises so that they feel the pain of their users and be empathize about it, right? So that's this is one type of awareness program happening in some organizations. And the second type of solution some organizations are following is the instructor-led trainings, wherein organizations are taking accessibility partners like Deque or some specialists help in order to run trainings for their designers so that their designers will understand the technicality of the WCAG rules, accessibility rules. And then when I checked with some of the designers and designer leads in some of the organizations, they said, though they may not look at each and every detail of normative section of the accessibility or the best practices of the accessibility, but they do have certain guidelines, or they run the heuristics checklist, maybe with top 10 or whatever they feel comfort sounds good for their organization. So they do run that checklist on every design review, and then make sure they're addressing the topmost design considerations that they want to address. And then and some organizations are coming forward and asking again accessibility specialists or the partners to do an audit of their component libraries and design systems, so they can address the issues there itself. And then I found that in some of the organizations are going through building the annotations and documentation around it, because they are finding the gap between the designer's intention versus the outcome that is being developed. So they are transforming their intentions or their recommendations in the form of annotations and handing it over to the developer, so that developer can follow those recommendations and build the code accordingly. This is another type of solution organizations are following in order to make the things accessible in the design phase. And the last but not the least, I found that some of the designers are using the plugins that are available within the design editors today and making use of them. Okay, and so my first question for all of you is that out of all these solutions, what are the solutions that you are using in your organization to create awareness and implement accessibility in the design phase as of today? So Ryan, can you please post the first question link in the chat, and then I'll pull up the results, and you will have, we will wait for 30 seconds for you to answer the questions. And also let me read out the question for everyone's benefit. I'm shifting back to my browser because I can't see the question here. So the first question is, of these solutions that I just laid out so far, what are the solutions or techniques you are using at your organization to create awareness and implement accessibility in the design phase? The options are empathy and awareness, instructor-led trainings, heuristics or design review or audits, annotations and documentation, plugins, and the last option is Ed to start our accessibility journey. So let me go through the results.
Hey, Sujasree, sorry to interrupt real quick. If you wouldn't mind trying to slow down just a scotch so the captioner can keep up a little bit better with you, please.
Thank you. Sure, definitely.
Thank you so much.
So I'm waiting for the results. Can you please respond? Ryan, did you post the link?
Oh, yes, I did. Yep. So if you're in chat, it's labeled as question 1. There you go.
Yeah, there. Yes. So 22 people answered the questions so far. So I'll give 10 more seconds to see if there are any more responses coming in my way. All right. So it's evident that empathy and awareness, heuristics checklist, and annotations, are the solutions many people are following, many organizations are following. Thank you so much for your input, and then taking it back to the presentation. Thank you. Thank you for your input, and then moving ahead. So in the journey, again, so we know why we are doing this, and we know what exists today in the designer's space, right? And then the next question we thought is like, okay, now what else designers need? What are their pain points, right? So we wanted to see, we wanted to go back and ask, like, okay, what else you need? What do you want us to solve, right? And then I did a survey in 2021 last year, and 50 people participated in that survey. And then the results were, we were able to figure out there are top 2 challenges One of the challenge was, there is a big lack of, accessibility knowledge, and also lack of tools as well. So when I say tools, there can be some external tools, but what we are talking about here is the automated tools within the editors, within the design editors. This is one challenge. Of course, significantly, I have seen some plugins for color contrast and the focus order, but otherwise I couldn't find many. But if you know that, if you are using any other automated tool, please type it in the chat. And then the second problem that we identified is that as I was speaking, the mismatch between the designer's vision and the developed outcome. And Miranda Capra, director of inclusive design at Troist, she clearly told us, and very loud and clear, she said, like, yeah, it can exist, and it is very common as well, due to the lack of deep collaboration between design and dev. And right now they are trying to solve this problem through annotations and documentation, but it is a very tedious process and not very efficient process. At least it takes a lot of time to do that job. So these are the two top problems that we felt like this can be, this should be solved. And then, so we started working towards the solution, taking these are common problems. Okay. So now the question, another question I have for you is, do you agree if these are indeed the top challenges from your point of view? In case if you say no, please, I'll request that, type in what is your top challenge in doing your day-to-day job and making your designs accessible. Right, and Ryan, can you please post the second question link?
Yep, getting that posted right now.
So let me read out the question, second question. And do you agree that automated tools covering more accessibility rules in design editors and design dev collaboration are indeed the top challenges? Options are yes, of course. Second option, no, I do see other top challenges. In case if you choose no, I request you to type what is your top challenge so that I can go over your comments after the session. So let's see the results. Okay, I'll give a few more seconds. And it looks like yes is 74%, and 26% people said no, I do see other challenges. So please type in what is your top challenge otherwise. But I'm very happy to see that we have focused on top issues as per the majority of the people opinion here. Thank you for the input.
I've got one suggestion here. My top challenge is top-down leadership. These are very grassroots in their organization. And another one says lack of awareness is a bigger challenge.
Yes. So yeah, lack of awareness and lack of education, yeah, that is another problem too. Yes. Okay. So thank you so much for your input, and let's move forward and see. So we identified these problems, and then we thought of starting with these challenges and building out something as an experiment, because still we don't know some things like what works and what doesn't work for designers. So we laid out a vision for ourselves, like, okay, we wanted to bring right and integrated accessibility tools and education, as someone pointed about awareness through education, and improve the designer developer community and by enabling collaboration and efficiency. So we wanted to very clearly, we wanted to focus on two problems. One is building automated tool right for to work in the design editor itself, and for the educational content through the tool, and then work on the automation of annotations as well, so that the collaboration can be made very efficient. So those are the two very focused problems we have chosen and started building an experiment around it, and it's called X for Designers. So just day before yesterday, we published it on the Figma community. So as I said, it is in progress still, and it's an experiment. Please consider it as an experiment. So, but we want you to try it out and give us the feedback where it works and where it doesn't work, and we are very open to improve this plugin. So it's a free Figma plugin right now, and in case if you are a non-Figma user, we would welcome to have a conversation with you, and if you see that the value of this plugin in the editor that you are using, we are very open for it. Please come forward and have a conversation with us if that is the case. So to start with, this is the Figma plugin and is freely available, and you can try using it. And how you can try is like very simple. The workflow is very simple in order to use it. I'll show the demo as well. But you can go to the community, Figma community, and search for X for Designers in that, and install the plugin. And once you find the plugin, once you install it, and go back to the editor, Figma editor, and choose the X for Designers plugin from the plugins menu, and then register yourself with us. And then once you register, you get the verification email. Once you verify your email, that's all you have to do. You have to come back to editor and start using it. It's that simple. In case of any feedbacks, please use the feedback channels we provided. For example, we gave a feedback form within the plugin itself, so you can fill that form and suggest file a bug there, or you can come to Figma community on the plugin page and then write about it, or you can mail us at xdaxed@deqjv.com. Okay, so it's a time for a quick demo. So let me go back to the Figma editor and show you. All right, so this is my Figma editor. So first let me take you to the community and where you can find this plugin. So I'm going to the community page on Figma, and I'm searching for X for Designers. You simply say X, and then you will find under the plugins section, you will find one plugin, right? And then click on it, and you see that X for Designers page, and we try to describe in a better way whatever we can and install it from here, because it is installed on my machine already. So I'm going back to the editor now in order to use it. So I'm going back to my editor here, and in order to pull up the plugin, go to plugins menu and click X for Designers. In case if you are not able to see the menu option, you can just go to any Figma design and then right click and then go to plugins and pull up the X for Designers. So now I'm on the tool, and as you see, it landed on the login page. In case if you don't have an account, register here and then fill the details, and in case if you already registered and verified your email, then come back here and log in with your credentials. So since I have my credentials here already, I'm a user already, so I'm just logging in. All right, I just logged in. So once you log in, you will be able to access the all the features available. So let me start with as I have been telling, we started building this tool with two focused problems. One is automation of accessibility rules as much as possible, and that we are addressing through the auto scan. And another problem is the annotations, and we are going to do something. We are going to come back to you on the annotations part this year for sure. So in this basic first version, what we are going to show you is the auto scan feature. So wherein we try to automate the color contrast rule and touch target for buttons and the heading, two of the heading rules actually. So let me just pull up a Figma design, and then for example, I just selected this color palette here, and I'm just clicking the scan, and as you see, it reported some issues here, and as you see, there is it is listing out what is selected frame, and then how many issues it found, and then there are some filters where you can choose the standard and the rules, different rules available, and then the issues like our issues are best practices or needs review. And in the standards, actually because it doesn't have touch target problems, it's not showing 2.1 here, but otherwise it will show the different standards available as well. And the components part is still in progress, but our idea is to let you filter by component so that you can assign the relevant bugs to the respective component authors instead of giving it to the designer, to the web designers, right? So that's the idea. And if you see the issue details pane, as you and if you toggle the highlight button on, as you see, it starts highlighting the issues, and as you navigate, and it starts moving to the respective element as well. And in the issue details, you see what is the issue. Here the issue is that the contrast ratio is less than what it is expecting, which is 4.5:1, and then the element that has the problem, and then the background color hex code and the foreground color hex code, and then what is the actual contrast ratio, and which is 2.6:1 in this case, which is less than the expected 4.5:1, and then the recommendation. And we are giving suggestions as well here, and we are giving only 5 suggestions at this point of time. And whenever you look at the suggestions, please fix the other opposite color as fixed, meaning that, for example, if you are looking at background color suggestions, always keep in mind that foreground color is fixed, that is white. So for this foreground color, what we are suggesting, the colors that are passing contrast ratio which is greater than 4.5:1, and algorithm works in a way that it takes the current existing background color, and then it takes the variance of it and then moves from darkest to brightest, and picks up the colors that pass the contrast ratio. And the same works for the other foreground color as well. And as you are seeing, on hovering the tile, I'm showing you it is showing you the hex code of the suggestion, and also along with the contrast ratio. And wherever you see the color tiles, if you click on it, it copies that hex code as well for you, just for the convenience sake. So this is about color contrast, and the beauty of it is like, first of all, it works with opacity as well. And right now we are focusing on doing POCs on non-text contrast and the gradient colors, but other feature, beautiful feature of it is like, you can select the entire palette, like entire frame, or you can pick any particular frame and then rescan the selected frame. Now you see, instead of 50 or 40 plus issues that you just have seen, now it is just 4 issues and only on the purple violet frame. So you can scan the entire page or subsection of the page, and all of that is possible with it. And also in terms of Figma tree, you can scan the frames or groups or auto layout nodes and subframes, subgroups and subnodes as well, right? And what it doesn't scan is the text node, because it doesn't make sense to scan these rules on just the text node, right? So this is one thing I wanted to show. And then other thing is I'm moving to a web page. For example, here I have, for example, in this case, we selected a component, right? You can directly go to assets and then pick the component and then run it as well. For example, here, if I do rescan, it does the scan as well. So now I'm going to the web page, or you can take mobile screen or web page, and then I'm selecting it and then rescanning it. And here you see touch target size problems as well, and the headings problems as well, right? Because I already covered contrast, I'm moving ahead with the touch target problem. So as you highlight, it starts highlighting the elements that have the problems, touch target problems. As you see on the right side, the height of the button is 43 pixels, whereas the expected is 44 by 44, and is the reason it is failing. As I mentioned, we implemented this rule for buttons, and as you see, there are 4 buttons that are failing this rule, and let me quickly go to that. So now you might be wondering, for example, if I go to this button, right, and it also has 43 pixels only, but the tool is not identifying it. The reason is because for these buttons, as you see, the designers grouped the labeled the button as button here. That is the reason it is going and scanning all the buttons and then figuring out what is its width and what is its height and all of that. But in Figma or in any design editor, it's all about shapes, right? So if you keep everything just as a shape and it cannot identify what is a button and what is a link, and it can differentiate that, at least in the rule-based algorithms, right? So in our long vision, what we are going to highlight is that we will try to use the machine learning model to see if we can identify the elements, design elements by patterns, but it takes some time. So we started implementing the rule-based algorithms, and it requires you to label the things properly. So I'm not expecting that you do it, but what I want to learn from you is like, is it a practice in your organization? That's what we want to learn through this. And then let's go to the headings section, and it is saying there is one heading problem. First of all, if the web page that you selected or the mobile screen that you selected doesn't have any heading, then it says that it doesn't have any heading. And in this case, it has the headings, but it is finding some hierarchy problem here. So the element that has the problem is the product status element, and its parent is orders. So let's see what is the problem. So if I go and pick that product status, as you see, it has the text style name, and in that it is indicating that it is a H1, whereas if I go to its parent element, it is identifying it as H2 actually. So in order to identify the elements, heading styles especially, we are depending on the text style names and the positioning of the elements as well in the current build that we have. Okay, this is about the auto scan, and also as you see, this plugin is showing the results instantly, and it is not saving anything. We are not able to persist because it's a plugin, and we are going to give a download button here so that you can download the report into the CSV. But though we give a CSV, we felt like it will be nice to give the entire report with the dashboard view. So we gave save and view report, wherein if you click this, actually it saves the current report into the cloud instance, and then show you the report. So you can log in to this external web application using the same credentials that you have for the plugin, and then log in. So as you see, it gives you a nice dashboard view, and wherein it says that how many designs you scanned and saved under your portfolio, and how many issues it found in total. And then it gives you a segregated view of how many you found in contrast or different rules that we automated, and also you can find some quick references here. So we are going to push a lot of educational content through this, and documentation is also available for the product. And when you click on something here, for example, let's say a single report, and it gives the same dashboard view for the single report, right? And then here you can see all the issue descriptions for the full details, and when you click more details, it will give you even the background, like what types of disabilities people with disabilities will impact due to this accessibility issue, and what are the suggestions, and what is the rule about, and how to fix the issue, and all of that. And we are going to link this to Deque University as well, so that you will find much more information as well. And apart from this, we are going to give a share option, which is coming very soon, and so that you can share it with the teams as well. So I'm going back to the plugin, And so this is about auto scan feature. And what we found in our discovery calls is that developers really, designers really very interested to have a manual contrast checker as well. And as they move through the text nodes, they want to see the contrast ratio. So in this case, for example, I just selected this text node and it is showing the background and foreground colors, and because the contrast is failing here, it is giving the suggestions. In case, let's say if I pick a text node that passes the color contrast, it doesn't give the suggestions. So as you move towards navigate through the text elements, it keeps changing dynamically as well. So this is also available in case if this is convenient for the designers. So, and then as I said, annotations we are still building, and then as I told you, like there is a feedback form available, and please feel free to raise a bug or suggest a feature request through this, so we get the notification and we work on that actively. And this is the tool that we have so far. As I said, it is still in the experiment stage, so you may find issues, but please feel free to log those and we'll definitely work on those, and we will be waiting for your feedback. Okay, all right. So going back to the presentation, so this is the quick demo, and I'm just going to summarize the key features that we just demoed. And as you have seen, auto scan. Sorry, let me put in the full screen. So as you observed during the demo, it scans for color contrast, touch target for buttons, and the two heading rules. And then it has the manual contrast checker as well, and it has come up with some nice dashboard view with the full report as well. So, and then the key differentiators are like, it's completely free, and even including the color suggestions. And as I was telling, you can auto scan the entire page or entire component or sub component or sub page, and in the technical terms of Figma trees, you can auto scan frame or group or auto layout nodes as well. And of course, availability of the full detailed report if you save the report from the plugin. So these are some key differentiators that I can comment at this point of time. And so we did something right, and we have been doing this experiment, we are continuing with it, but as we are maturing with this journey, we observed some challenges, as I was you might have observed it when I demoed it as well. So what if if you name the labels properly, like if you label the controls properly, right? So we feel like we can automate more accessibility rules, but I'm not sure whether this is a norm or best practice in your organizations. So all I'm asking is, okay, this is the observed state, right? So when you just use the Figma features and use the shapes in order to design the elements, this is how the structure will be. It may be a group or it may be a frame or something like that. And then the desired state, what we look at is like, at least label it as button. Again I'm saying, I'm not expecting it, but what I want to learn from you is like, do you practice this at your organizations? Like, do you name your components of design system properly, meaning that button as a button, link as a link, tab panel as a tab panel, something like that. So Ryan, can you please post the question, third question?
Yeah, getting that posted right now.
Okay, I'm reading the question for you. Do you name your components of design system properly? Example, buttons as buttons, links as links, accordions as accordions, etc. The options are yes, we do, no, we don't, sometimes we do, and I do not know. So please answer the question so that we are aware, we understand your world better. So let me go to the third question, results. Right, I'm looking at the results pane and I'm not getting any results so far. Let me refresh it. Okay. Yes. Okay. So I got 32 answers. Thank you so much. And out of it, 41% people said, yes, we do. Thank you so much. And 47% people said, sometimes we do. And some people said, I do not know. And 0% said, no, we don't. I'm very grateful about this. And for people who answered, sometimes we do, may I request you to type in the chat, why do you think so? Like, what's the challenge that is, what is the challenge in order to make this as a practice at your organization? Your answer may help us to get a good insight about it. Please do that. Thank you. Okay, going back to the presentation, I'll keep it in the non-full screen mode because I have 2 more questions to ask, 3 more questions in fact. So, and then the next problem that we faced is about the structure actually. So as you see, in some design system, like we duplicated a lot of design systems from Figma community when we were testing this plugin. And we observed that in some of the design systems, they followed a very proper structure, proper labeling and all of that. But in some cases, everything is under one parent node. And in that case, we are not able to identify, the relationship, be it an order or be it a parent-child relationship. That's the problem we observed. So, and let me show you one example. Maybe it gives a better idea for this, but we are running out of time, but I'll make sure I quickly run through it. And for example, in this calendar widget, as you see, one, and then I'm pulling the, pull up the plugin, and then when I go to the contrast checker, and then I pick some color, and then as you see, it is able to identify the background and foreground, and as you see, it is identifying the background and foreground for 13 date, and then when I go to 11, it is not identifying it correctly, right? It should identify the purple thing as a background, but it is not identifying. The reason being is, in this particular structure, everything is under one particular parent actually. So all I did is in the other calendar where I fixed this problem, and if you go and select it, as you see, it is picking up the right colors, right? All I did is I just clubbed them together and grouped it. That's it. I did. So with that one change, it is able to identify the colors properly. So this structuring and ordering is also very important for us in order to automate more rules. So I want to understand from you, do you maintain proper structure? That means order and parent-child relationships, like grouping the things together that makes sense as a group, and in your components of design system properly. Ryan, may I ask you to please launch the poll for the 4th question?
Yep, just push that live.
Yes. Okay. So the question is, do you maintain the proper structure, that is order, parent-child relationships, in your components of design system properly? The options are, yes, we do, no, we don't, sometimes we do, and I do not know. So let me pull the results. Okay. Okay, this is expected actually. Even in my discovery calls, it is like 50-50, and sometimes even less than 50% is what I observed. So what I'm finding in the results is that, let me refresh it again to see if there are any more. Okay, yeah. So 45% of the people said sometimes we do, and 32% of the people said, yes, we do. So thank you so much for, giving all this input, and whoever answered no or sometimes we do, please give us, in case if there is any challenge or reasoning behind it, that helps us to have a better insight. Thank you. So I'll ask one last question because of the interest of the time. And then for the headings, as you observed, I said, like, for the heading rules automation, we are looking at the text styles to indicate, to have, to retrieve what kind of heading level it is. It need not be, just have H1, H2, it can be heading 1. Some phrase that indicates that it is a heading. Basically, that's what we are expecting. So do you name the text styles for headings properly in your design systems is the next question. Ryan, please post that.
Yep, I just pushed that live to chat.
Okay, so this time still going to wait for more responses. Let's see. Okay, I'm waiting for 5 more seconds in order to see the latest poll results. All right. So the results are like, 21 people responded to the survey poll, and 57% people said yes, we do. And this gives us some confidence about, doing better things for sure. Thank you so much. And again, the same question, whoever answered sometimes and no, please tell us, what's your challenge in order to make it as a best practice in your organization. Thank you so much for participating in all the polls. And I do have one last question that I think in the interest of time, I'm moving forward, but still, Ryan, please pose the 6th question. I'll see the results later. And the question is, as part of our product roadmap, we are already starting to prioritize building annotations that you are going to see sometime this year. So, but we want to ensure that we are on the right priority. So in your view, is it the right thing that we are doing? That's the question. You can say yes or no. Thank you. And some of the final thoughts from my end are like, like as we are maturing in this process, we keep getting these kind of questions and we want to understand what is the industry practice. So we need more people during our, discovery calls. So please help us in case if you are interested to be part of our continuous discovery, please write to me and I'll be more than happy to have a conversation with you. And also if you are a non-Figma design user and you want to have this kind of plugin in your design editor, please write to me or talk to me. I'll be happy to have a further conversation and discussion around that. And you can reach me at Sujasree.Kurapati, sujasree.kurapati@deque.com, deque.com, and on LinkedIn, linkedin.com/in/SujasreeK, and Twitter handle the same @SujasreeK, SUJASREEK. And my special thanks to all the people who participated in the discovery calls with me for last 6 months, and Rupa Devi, Lead Product Design, Bloomreach, India, and Brian Anderson, Senior Accessibility Specialist, Sainsbury's Digital from UK, and Miranda Capra, Director of Inclusive Design, Truist, USA, and Anna Sophie, Designer, UX and UI, Freelancer, from France. And of course, my very special thanks to my wonderful team and colleagues who made this to get, to come to this stage. Thank you so much. And finally, I gave some references for you to look at in case if that helps. Thank you so much for listening to me and helping us with your insights. And we will go back and read through all your comments. Thank you so much.
Thanks very much, Sujasree. Thanks everybody for joining us. I'm afraid we won't have time to answer questions, but I'll make sure any questions that you post to chat or Q&A that they're relayed to Sujasree to follow up on. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you so much.